many other...
This is right, Arab.
Hello and welcome to WION Live broadcast from London. I'm Ollie Barrett, and coming up we've got updates on stories developing around the world. Lots to get through. Frantic discussions are underway in Kandahar as the Taliban is set to form a government in the coming week. Sources suggest that the Taliban's Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar could lead the new Afghan government as head of the Executive Council. The UN resumes humanitarian flights to Afghanistan. Air services are now operating flights linking the Pakistani capital Islamabad with the city Mazar-e-Sharif in northern Afghanistan and with Kandahar in the south. Russian President Vladimir Putin blames the US for the humanitarian catastrophe in Afghanistan and calls for joint global efforts to tackle the crisis. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern says an ISIS-inspired Sri Lankan national stabbed 6 people at an Auckland supermarket. The attacker was under surveillance and was shot dead by police. The death toll from flash floods after remnants of Hurricane Ida pummeled cities has risen to 44. New York City witnessed historic rains which filled basements with water, turned freeways and boulevards into rivers and submerged cars. Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga will step down after just a year in office. With many of the country's big cities still under a COVID state of emergency, Suga's approval rating stood below 30%. It is a crucial week for the Taliban. It's set to form the new Afghan government. The group, which was declared a terror outfit by the United Nations, will now have to transform into a governing power again. The Taliban's promised a softer brand of rule than last time it was in charge. Whether it will follow through or not on that remains to be seen. The international community's adopted a wait and watch rule as it mulls recognising the Taliban. Discussions are underway in Kandahar, with latest reports suggesting that Mullah Abdul Ghani Baradar, who is a co-founder of the Taliban, is expected to be the head of the Executive Council. This council will be functioning under the Emir. Sheikh Hibatullah will be the supreme authority of the new Islamic government. Key positions are expected to be given to Sirajuddin Haqqani, another deputy and influential operations leader within the movement. Along with him, Maulawi Muhammad Yaqub, who is the son of the Taliban movement's founder, Mullah Muhammad Omar. He'll also be given an important role, we expect, in the government. You are looking at images uploaded by Ahmadullah Muttaqi, the chief of the multimedia branch for the Cultural Commission Islamic Emirate of Afghanistan. He says the country's Ministry of Information and Culture have made arrangements for ceremonies at the presidential palace. So far, the Taliban have named a governor and mayor for Kabul, governor for Nangarhar, governor for Khost, head of sports federation and a minister of higher education. Officials to run the Ministry of Public Health and the central bank have also been named. Many Kabul residents are concerned, though, about the country's future. Some worry about employment opportunities, some fear they won't have access to education. Many world powers are hoping for an inclusive government, but the Taliban has not yet confirmed anything. What we know is that the government Taliban is taking over a country with challenges on multiple fronts. More than a third of the population lives on less than $2 a day. Banks, which were closed after the Taliban's takeover, have now been ordered to reopen. But that means hours of queuing thanks to strict weekly limits on cash withdrawals. The country also faces the loss of billions of dollars in aid, as many foreign development groups have halted their assistance since the international troop withdrawal. The Taliban has promised that economic hardship will ease once the new government is in place.
Armed Taliban fighters stood guard at the closed airport in Kabul, where planes sat idle on the tarmac on Thursday, as Afghanistan's Taliban rulers prepared to unveil their new government, and some residents worried about their new reality.
I have no hope for the future because you also better know the situation. Every person wants to go outside from the country because they have no jobs, they have no business, they have no facility for the people to do.
Growing economic hardship is emerging as the new Taliban government's biggest challenge, but even before the Islamist militia's swift takeover 2 weeks ago, many Afghans were already struggling to feed their families as the country reels from its second drought in 4 years. Video provided by the World Food Program showed Afghan men and women waiting for basic rations at a UN food distribution center in the northern city of Mazar-e-Sharif.
There are no crops, no rain, no water, and people are living in misery. This food is a great mercy from God, and it really helps poor and needy people.
The World Food Program says food prices have spiked since drought wiped out some 40% of the wheat crop, and the WFP's country director said millions of Afghans could soon face starvation.
The situation that we have unfolding at the moment is absolutely horrendous and could morph into just a humanitarian catastrophe.
Adding to the misery of drought and an economy on the verge of collapse is continued conflict. On Thursday, fighters loyal to local leader Ahmed Massoud, seen here marching last week, battled Taliban forces in Afghanistan's Panjshir Valley, the last province resisting rule by the Taliban. Each side said it had inflicted heavy casualties, and the rebel fighters have pledged to hold out against the Taliban for as long as they can.
WION correspondent Anas Malik sent us this report.
Well, the government formation announcement has been delayed by the Afghan Taliban. It was speculated to be held today, though there was no official confirmation on that. It was much anticipated that there was an announcement that was likely to be done today, sometime after the Friday prayers. But now sources within the Taliban say that the announcement has been delayed until next week. Sometime mid next week, we're looking at the government formation announcement being done. The confirmation will be done in Kandahar, whereas the ceremony and the announcement will be followed here in Kabul. Behind me is the Afghan presidential palace, where the ceremony is to take place. Today is a Friday, and Friday is a day off here in Afghanistan by and large. So we're seeing lesser traffic on the road, shops being closed as well. People who are looking forward to this government announcement, so that this would have led to things being put at ease, at calm, given that there is a dysfunctional setup within the country that has been in one way or the other running the country since the past 20 days or so. Anas Malik in Kabul, Afghanistan for WION World is One.
Domestic flights from Kabul airport are set to resume from today. The closure of Kabul International Airport has been posing major strategic and humanitarian challenges. And to avert an even deeper crisis, Qatar is working with the Taliban to try and quickly reopen the airport. Doha was a major transit point for Afghan refugees that were able to fly out. Since frenzied evacuations ended with the American withdrawal earlier this week, 2 jets from the Gulf country have landed in the Afghan capital. The second flight from Doha carried experts who will examine security and operational aspects pertaining to the airport. Doha has close contacts with the Taliban, which assumed control of Kabul on August the 15th. Qatar's Foreign Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman has expressed hope to operate the airport as soon as possible for international flights. The Qatari Foreign Minister has also called for the Taliban to demonstrate their commitment to provide safe passage and freedom of movement for the people of Afghanistan.
We will do our best. We are engaging with them, engaging with also Turkey if they can provide any technical assistance on that front. And hopefully in the next few days we will hear some good news.
The discussions about reopening the airport also included Turkey, which could provide technical assistance. Turkey's confirmed it is evaluating proposals from the Taliban and others on the airport, with Foreign Minister Mevlut Cavusoglu saying security inside and outside the facility remains the top priority. The Netherlands also intends to help with technical matters or security at the airport.
Ticari uçuşların başlayabilmesi için şartların tamamen oluşması gerekiyor. Ve bu konuda sorumluluğu kimler üstlenecek? Daha önce havaalanının sorumluluğunu üstlenme konusunda bir irade ortaya koymuştuk. Şimdi şartlar değişti tabii. Şimdi Taliban'dan ve bazı ülkelerden de aynı şekilde bizimle işbirliği konusunda talepler var. Bunların hepsini değerlendiriyoruz.
I can reaffirm that we, as the Netherlands, we want to assist, provide technical or security assistance where possible, or provide assets, and that's what we're exploring in order to enable the strong efforts by Turkey and Qatar to render the airport operational again for humanitarian flights, humanitarian access, but of course also the safe and secure evacuation of nationals and Afghans of concern.
The airport had previously been operated through contractors from third countries who are no longer able to do so. The airport only has a single runway and it's only 5 kilometres from downtown Kabul. This means planes have to go into a holding pattern over the city if they can't land immediately. The United States has also shown support to Qatari and Turkish efforts to restore the airport. British Foreign Secretary Dominic Raab says the UK is watching with great interest what may be possible. The UK has evacuated some 17,000 British and Afghan nationals since April, but London says it hopes that those left behind, including those most at risk, can travel to the UK in the near future. Uighurs in Afghanistan fear deportation after the takeover of the Taliban. The lives of as many as 2,000 ethnic Uighurs born or living in the country have been placed under jeopardy. They fear being deported to China to join an estimated 1 million other Uighurs in what are claimed to be Xinjiang's concentration camps. Beijing denies that characterization. The anxiety and worries for Uighurs in Afghanistan are increasing, with the Taliban and China exploring potential areas of cooperation. Last month, a Taliban delegation met with the Chinese foreign minister in Tianjin. China asked for the Taliban's cooperation in combating the extremist East Turkestan Islamic Movement, or the ETIM, in Afghanistan. ETIM is a UN-designated international terrorist organisation linked to Uyghur militants outside China. The Taliban reiterated that they wouldn't allow any force to use Afghan territory to engage in anti-China acts. Many say the Chinese government considers any Uyghur in Afghanistan to be ETIM and therefore a threat to China. Deportations of Uyghurs have taken place historically under the Taliban. In the year 2000, 13 Uyghurs were handed over to China after a meeting between the Chinese ambassador to Pakistan and Taliban leader Mullah Omar. According to the Chinese government, over 12 million Uyghurs live in Xinjiang, which borders Afghanistan. Rights groups have expressed fears for the country's Uyghur population. China's been accused of a brutal crackdown. There have been multiple reports of systematic rape, sexual abuse, torture, forced birth control, sterilisation, forced labour and other human rights abuses. China has denied all those accusations and says the camps are training centres where those poisoned by religious extremism gain vocational and legal training. A deadly stabbing incident, which is being described as a terror attack, has left the city of Auckland shocked. An ISIS supporter was killed by New Zealand police after he stabbed 6 people at a supermarket. New Zealand's Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has called the man a known security threat. He was reportedly under constant surveillance by multiple government agencies.
New Zealand police shot and killed a man on Friday after he stabbed and wounded at least 6 people in a supermarket in the city of Auckland. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern called the man a violent extremist.
What happened today was despicable. It was hateful. It was wrong. It was carried out by an individual, not a faith, not a culture, not an ethnicity, but an individual person who was gripped by ideology that is not supported here by anyone or any community. He alone carries the responsibility for these acts. Let that be where the judgment falls.
She said he was a supporter of the Islamic State militant group. The attacker, who has not been named, has been identified as a Sri Lankan national who has lived in New Zealand for 10 years and has been a person of interest for about 5 years, Ardern said, and was monitored constantly. He was killed within 60 seconds of beginning his attack. Police following the man thought he had gone into the supermarket to do some shopping, but he pulled out what one witness described as a long knife and started stabbing people. Police said the attacker was acting alone, and they were confident there was no further threat to the public.
Next to Japan, and after only a year of premiership, Japanese Prime Minister Yoshihide Suga will be stepping down by the end of the month, setting the stage for a new premier. The Prime Minister's term was marred by an unpopular pandemic response, according to the polls. Suga won't run for the governing party leadership election set for September the 29th. This means his party will have to choose a new leader who will also become Japan's Prime Minister.
私自身、新型コロナ対策に専任をしたい、そういう思いの中で自民党総裁選挙には出馬をしない、こうしたことを私自身出馬を予定する中で、このコロナ対策と選挙活動、こうしたことを考えたときに、実際、莫大なエネルギーがこれ必要でありました。そういう中で、やはり両立はできない。
It did come as a surprise in Japan. Ruling Liberal Democratic Party officials had said that Suga would finish his term as its leader until the successor had been chosen in a party-wide election. The winner of the contest is all but assured of being premier because of the LDP's majority in the lower house. Fumio Kishida, a former foreign minister, is the front-runner for the party leader's post. Kishida recently criticised Suga's coronavirus response and urged a stimulus package to combat the pandemic. Administrative Reform Minister Taro Kono could run, and former Defence Minister Shigeru Ishiba could also put his hat in the ring. Suga became Prime Minister after Shinzo Abe resigned last September. He has since then seen his support ratings sink to below 30% as the nation struggles with its worst wave yet of COVID-19 infections. Japan is fighting to control its 5th and largest coronavirus wave, driven by the Delta variant. Most of the country is under a state of emergency, which will continue until September the 12th. The country recorded an all-time high of 25,892 COVID-19 cases on August the 20th. The development takes place ahead of a general election which the government had been considering holding on October the 17th. The United States Federal Aviation Administration has barred Virgin Galactic from flying its Spaceship Two until the agency approves its final mishap probe report from its July flight. The FAA said that Spaceship Two deviated from its air traffic control clearance as it returned to Spaceport America in New Mexico. It was carrying British billionaire Richard Branson to the edge of space.
Virgin Galactic has been grounded by the US Federal Aviation Administration. The move comes as regulators investigate a mishap that occurred during Sir Richard Branson's debut passenger trip to space. The FAA confirmed on Wednesday it was investigating a deviation in the descent of the July flight known as Unity 22. In a statement, the agency said, quote, "Spaceship Two deviated from its air traffic control clearance as it returned to Spaceport America. Virgin Galactic may not return the Spaceship Two vehicle to flight until the FAA approves the final mishap investigation report." Virgin Galactic said in response it was addressing the causes of the issue and determining how to prevent it from happening again. The company has admitted the vehicle dropped below the altitude of the airspace for a short period, but it described the flight as safe and successful, adding that at no point were the passengers or crew put in danger. Branson was among 6 Virgin Galactic employees who took part in the July flight, soaring more than 50 miles above the New Mexico desert. He had touted the mission as a precursor to a new era of space tourism and said his company was poised to begin commercial operations next year.
Over 5 million people worldwide are living with dementia, a neurological disorder that robs them of their memory. It can be caused by a stroke, brain injury or Alzheimer's disease. The World Health Organization says with populations ageing, the number of people suffering from dementia is projected to rise to 78 million by 2030 and 139 million by 2050.
The World Health Organization released a report on Thursday projecting the number of dementia sufferers to rise 40% to 78 million by 2030. With populations aging, the neurological disorder that robs people of their memory, often caused by stroke, brain injury or Alzheimer's disease, costs the world $1.3 trillion a year. Patrine Seher is an expert in WHO's Department of Mental Health.
With currently over 55 million people living with dementia worldwide, dementia truly is a global public health concern, and not just in high-income countries. In fact, over 60% of people with dementia live in low and middle-income countries.
Currently, only 1 in 4 countries has a national policy in place to support dementia patients and their families, according to the report. Health ministers agreed in 2015 on a global action plan, including early diagnosis and providing care, but countries are falling short on meeting targets by 2025. The organization is urging governments to step up the public health challenge. Taryn Dua, the head of WHO's Department of Mental Health and Substance Use.
So I think the message to countries and message to everybody is to take care of what you think about is good for your heart is also good for your brain. And we should incorporate those healthy lifestyles, decrease those risk factors, and thus we can decrease the risk of having dementia.
For more global news and updates, do stay tuned to WION World is One.
This is right, Arab.